Yes, but not all.
All right, welcome guys. It is Monday, November 20th, and you are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And so if you're listening to us, if you happen to be hanging out in the United States, part of that crew, then you'll know that this is a bit of a holiday week, a little bit lighter load, people coming in and coming out. But today with us, we got Jimmy, Beth, Andy, and Robert. We will have on Brian. I will have shows going on all week. So even if you're, we shouldn't be, if you're putting the turkey in the oven at 10 a.m. Eastern, you're probably in trouble with the family. So let's just say if you're making the stuffing or peeling the potatoes,
especially on Monday as opposed to Thursday. So
yeah, right. Well, that's it. But I meant on Thursday. Come back and see us on Thursday. Like if you're hanging out with the family and you want to listen to a fun show on Thursday, we will have a live show. So we're all excited about that for those of us that can make it. But today, let's focus on today. So today is the show title is all about 2024 predictions. But what we would love to do is start this off, because if you've been following the news, if you watch the news again, if you're listening to this live, it's 10 a.m. on the East Coast. And I have to say the time because it could change in the next 5 seconds. The news coming out of, what was it, Friday? When was the wholesale thing? No, Friday. So Friday, we're talking about 72 hours, and there continues to be new news about that. So we do want to talk about that because I think it directly affects predictions. What happens with OpenAI definitely has an impact on any predictions we might make about 2024. So what I thought we would do is maybe let's open the show by maybe taking, I don't know, no more than 10 minutes, I would say, where we can kind of go through what's been going on to catch everybody up, but then moving on to more into the predictions. So I know Aaron also wanted to be here today and couldn't be with us live, and he put together a YouTube video. So we can maybe start with that. I have that queued up, and then maybe we can go from that part. And I think his is 5 minutes and nothing with Aaron. He did this like 3 hours ago. It's 11 p.m. on in Perth in Australia right now. And news has come out after that, which I think would happen to any of us. But what do you think, guys? Let me cue that up first so Aaron can, definitely be part of the show. I know he took the time to make the video. So I want to make sure I'm sharing some of his ideas. So let me get that on my screen super quick, and then we can maybe pause and talk about it, whatever you guys want to do. All right. Share screen. So start tab. Okay. Let me start playing this and I'll make it full screen on here as well.
And I'm coming to you pre-recorded because I'm not available for today's show. It's going to be 11 p.m. tonight, and I've got I need to get some sleep, basically. But it was such a huge news weekend. Obviously, the guy, Brian and the crew have probably already talked about lots of this stuff, but I just wanted to add my thoughts onto the whole OpenAI and Sam Altman saga. So obviously you already know what happened. OpenAI's board basically fired Sam, Greg quit, and then a whole pile of other people started pulling the pin and leaving. And then they were trying to get him back, and it didn't end up happening. And as you would probably know by now, Microsoft has actually, as you can see here on The Verge, Microsoft has hired Sam back and also Greg Altman, and they're joining Microsoft to form a new advanced AI research team. And no doubt there's going to be other players from OpenAI who have left or are going to leave and follow in there. So, wow. I mean, for me, it's been like a tech nerd fest of a combination of the Kardashians and the Housewives of San Francisco, which doesn't actually exist, but OpenAI's head office is based there, so we'll pretend it is. It's been an exciting roller coaster for the last couple of days. What do I think about it? I think, number one, it sounds like the board probably made a mistake, but we don't know exactly what was going on. We don't know exactly what Sam, they said that he was not communicating effectively, but what does that mean? We don't know. You've got Ilya and the rest of the board on one side going, hey, he's been a naughty boy. And on the other side, Sam's a bit of a rock star out there. Who knows? I guess at some stage this will come out and maybe a little bit more in the wash. What's going to happen to the board? I don't know. Are they going to get the flick? Are they all going to get fired? We've got the new guy coming in who's going to take over the firm as the CEO.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there. I want to keep going, so I want to make sure we keep Aaron's in there. But who wants to jump in really quick? And I'll even leave this up on the side. But who wants to jump in really quick and catch us up with what's happened since Aaron has made this video? Because truthfully, what Aaron's saying is still correct. Nothing that I have seen makes what he's saying incorrect. But who wants to catch us really quick? And Gunnar was alluding to it in his comment here. But who wants to talk on that really quick?
Well, I want to say one thing that I heard from a recent podcast, that there was a huge uptick in both Google DeepMind applications, Cohere. As soon as this happened, they had a huge influx. There was a poaching war about to start happening. So I don't know if that's exactly what you were asking for, Brian, but that's something that we need to be aware of. That this is not as simple as just the guy leaving or getting fired, and of course his loyal followers at the top is also the soldiers, the ones that are doing the programming. They're like, if you look at the Twitter, I have a screen share of OpenAI is nothing without the employees. We've seen that on Twitter or on X.
Yes.
It's like 20 people. It's like, what's going on here? This is very much a unified front, almost like a union against these board members, which oddly enough is only 6 board members, and Ilya is I think the one that made the flip, right? Because if it wasn't for him voting against it, I think it would have been a tie, right? Because there was Greg, there was Sam, there was Ilya, and these other 3 that were not part of the startup of OpenAI. That I don't know. So I guess I'm not really.
And they didn't tell Greg that the meeting was happening. Greg was not informed about the meeting that fired. About the chairman of the board was not invited to the meeting of the board when the board fired the CEO. But those 505 employees out of 700, according to Kara Swisher, signing this letter saying, we want you to resign as the board, and referencing in this that as part of the public statements that they've made, that, hang on, let me get the quote. You also informed the leadership team that allowing the company to be destroyed would be consistent with the mission.
Yeah, that's right in this part right here.
I didn't understand what you said by that. What do you mean by that? What did he say?
The board informed the leadership team, right? Informed Altman, that allowing the company to be destroyed by their decision is what's implied in this, would be consistent with the mission, because what it seemed like in the tea that has now been spilled, that the disconnect was about whether the direction that Sam was taking the company was in alignment with the mission of the nonprofit, which controls everything. One of the things that I saw that sort of summed this up, I thought, well, was they technically had the power, right? They had the legal power to do this, but they didn't really understand the social power in this, or the social dynamics, or what would happen to the company.
Of course not. Right. Yeah. Well, it's interesting you said that they are a nonprofit still, 503c or whatever, which is very interesting, this kind of terminology, because he's been doing this since, I guess, January, right? Moving it toward a for-profit kind of model. So are they just late to the game, or they're just fed up about the fact that it's not a nonprofit vision anymore? And the fact that he's raising money for lots of other kind of things on the side we don't know the real story. All these 500 people that signed this letter, they just want him back, and I guess, but what's the real reason that this all started? There's got to be a more in-depth reason, honestly.
I mean, honestly, I'm not into conspiracy theories, but there's people online right now that are saying that this could have been orchestrated by somebody at Microsoft, or it could have been orchestrated by Sam himself. And it could have been, I mean, these things are probably far-fetched to a certain extent, but is it beyond concept that this was part of a bigger play by maybe higher ups in order to make OpenAI definitely more about the forward products that sit underneath the nonprofit, because it is a unique structure? I really don't know. I haven't done deep dive research. I don't spend all my time on Twitter and read. But I think some of these
some very nice people have spent the last 48 hours on
and I
Twitter.
read their comments so that I don't have to read the rest of it. So I love people like Carl, who's not here today, but Carl is always quick on the draw with some of that. Oh, I'm sorry, Beth. Am I leaving you out?
I will say this is not conspiracy theory, so I'm not associating causality to this, but it is also factual that GPTs were announced on November 6th, and that is a direct competitor to Poe, which is owned by Quora, and Quora's CEO is one of the 6 board members.
Beth,
And one of
I gotta
them.
tell you, that's some really good research. That's very. I don't know where you found this. Maybe it was on X, but that's awesome. Like all those connectors are, man. I mean, that's not conspiracy theory. That's some really good information about what's going on. And I think that's a really good. And by the way, I also love the fact that your mic is matching your shirt. I just feel like cool stuff.
Yeah.
And
It was purple
and
shirt
Beth and
polo
Jimmy
day.
kind of matched today, also, which is
I just-
I noticed when you guys first came out. Okay, look, we are 10 minutes into a 30-minute show, and I want to make sure we do, kind of stay on top. But let's, before we move on to maybe predictions, and again, if this comes back up as far as OpenAI, I think that's great. But does anybody else have any comments on the last 72 hours per se? Because here's the thing, we'll go off air and it will change in the next 30 minutes, or 3 hours or whatever the case is. I don't think this is done because we haven't seen something that says the board is gone, Sam is reinstated, everything is happy again, just like it was on Thursday, except that the board is gone. So I think that's what my opinion is. That's exactly what Microsoft wants. I think Microsoft actually wants Sam over at OpenAI, not necessarily at Microsoft per se. So I think this is what the big players want, the investors want, everything else. And I think my prediction on this particular thing would be simply that the board is going to have to resign. They're going to be forced to do so. I would imagine before Thanksgiving, OpenAI will be back to OpenAI. That's my guess. That's my prediction.
Oh yeah. So I think the genies, not the genies are whatever. Satya made a play, and I think it's too late for that. I think that that bridge has been burned or whatever. I mean, does he want to go back to OpenAI? Maybe because of his people, but more likely, in my opinion, after Thanksgiving, is going to be a mass exodus going toward Microsoft, and that could see the crumbling, or it could see a purchase from Microsoft of OpenAI so they own it outright. But
they already own it.
Well, they own.
I mean, they already have access
49%.
to.
Yeah, but I guess
they already have access to everything.
Right, they have access to it, but they don't have control over it. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is that if they can get rid of the board and buy it, then everybody can stay in place, right? And they could basically have a fake version of 2 different companies when really it's one, but they can play that card. Yeah, so I think it's too late for it to fix what's broken, honestly.
So you're just to be clear, Robert. So you're saying your prediction is that Sam Altman does not return to OpenAI.
I mean, they already appointed him, like this new team. He's gonna give him the resources he needs and all this other stuff. And several people have already joined him. And then that's just going to be like, well, I want to join Sam. So I think there's gonna be a mass exodus from OpenAI, which is my big problem. So if we're talking about 2024 predictions, I'm going to jump into that. My prediction is not good. I don't want to be using Teams, man. It's like
using Teams.
It's like because
that wasn't good. That wasn't good.
There was a tweet.
Twitter.
This is another Elon tweet, right?
There was a tweet about that was Elon's tweet. There's another tweet I saw, and there was this Indian Bali movie, and the guy's like dancing like at Satya Nadella, and when he walked in saying, "Hey, I just got Sam," all the teams like cheering him on. Anyway, my point is that he's like the GOAT right now because he's done so much well for Microsoft. I feel like he's just going to continue to do these good decisions, and bringing Sam in, whatever it costs him, doesn't matter, because I think that the future is going to be that Microsoft is going to be a Google killer, an Apple killer, a Anthropic killer. I don't like it because I don't want to be in the Microsoft ecosystem. Can't stand it.
Jimmy, Andy, I know you guys have been kind of quiet here. What is your take and prediction based on the last 72 hours?
Okay, so first of all, OpenAI has since the launch of ChatGPT, it has been a schizophrenic company. It was founded on the principle of being an open source system, but it became so inherently valuable that it attracted huge investors beyond the billionaire investors who were behind it originally, including Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, and those people have some interest in what OpenAI is. And so you had this insinuation or even assertion from Sam recently, like in the last 4 or 5 months, that, hey, we're not going to stay a nonprofit. We're going to go down the path of not being a nonprofit. We're going to go and, capitalize on this opportunity. And there is the schism. So you've got a board and original founders who said, here's what we need to do gentle, kind AI for the future against all of the forces. And then it was changing internally because of its incredible success in developing a commercial product. And so this is representative of a deep chasm between some members of the board, including one of the members of the board is, a foundation kind of person in the nonprofit world. I don't have a personal memory of exactly who's on the board. It seems that the composition of the board has been changing. Typically, the board represents the interests of the investors, but in a nonprofit, that's not the case. So they have power that's outsized against the commercial opportunity and all the commercial interests that now, including Microsoft, want to take advantage of that. So it's an ugly, breakup, but it's necessary because in order for a company to succeed, there has to be alignment of strategic vision all the way through the company, from the investors to the board, all the way to the most, junior new employee. All those people have to be in alignment. There's clearly a breakup here. It's going to be messy, but it's good practice. But the board's action was not necessarily in the interest of doing that in a smooth and progressive way. So it's fun to watch it, but eventually it'll settle out, and there'll be two entities. One that's going to be OpenAI, the nonprofit, and then another entity, maybe buried in Microsoft, as Robert predicts. But it could also be that Sam Altman and Greg come back, not to OpenAI, the nonprofit, but to OpenAI, something that's agreed that is going to pursue the commercial.
I might be agree with you on that one. That might actually be a possibility.
Yeah.
Jimmy, what do you think before we go?
Along those lines, I'll tell you what I think is what will make the best movie script. So, so obviously we want to build who our protagonists and antagonists are. So I think the first half of the movie will be, or TV series, honestly, nowadays, will be a pitting against Ilya and Sam, and building, and then that board being convinced that the final straw has been placed there, and so we probably have some sort of, like Andy says, there's a clear schism there. We have the for-profit people and the nonprofit people. The reality is, the best happy ending we could see, as I agree with Andy. I think there will be an OpenAI, the nonprofit, and then everything else will be the for-profit, whether that's under Microsoft's umbrella, whether that it's its own entity. But with all the news of poaching and the employees willing to bolt if things aren't changed, then you're gonna see it sliced up like a pie, essentially.
I'm curious to know whether the employees have an phantom equity interest in OpenAI as it exists today.
Well, there was some big deal that was about to go down that now probably won't, that they were going to sell their, I don't know the exact details of that transaction, but it was, you know what I'm talking about, Beth?
Yeah,
I do, but I don't know that I have the language right. I want to say there was a tender on the table for employees. Is that a correct statement? That had value before the weekend and now has a very different value.
Yeah.
Right, because
As
they
it
were going to get
currently
matched to
stands.
the 86 billion evaluation.
It might have
Right.
something to do with 505 signatures too.
So,
Like,
Like,
so there's
yeah, I
an
want my money
Yeah.
back.
Yeah,
so there's
I
an incentive for the company as a community to potentially try to come back together and get as much
Exactly.
of that as
Yeah.
possible.
A little bit.
Yeah, I think there is going to be and it is not going to be an equal split for sure. But with that much money involved, people are going to be aligned to either their own profit or to the greater mission. But yeah, what we might see is OpenAI turn into a large player in the open source scene, but or at least that nonprofit arm. It'd be interesting to see some partnerships or collaborations with Hugging Face and that area to push forward the safety concerns and we'll call it quote unquote proper development of AI and things like that.
Yeah.
But you're definitely going to have your monetization arm. I just don't know what that final form is going to be.
I'm curious
So
who was leading the.
my prediction is that if Microsoft retains the for-profit arm, that AI adoption in businesses is accelerated because they're familiar with Microsoft. They're already using it, right? So then it just becomes like, oh, how do we use this in our products? I think it accelerates the value of what Copilot or whatever they're calling, what they're going to embed, what they've already embedded in 365. And I think that speeds things up.
What's so weird is that they're in direct competition with each other. Like OpenAI's whole model was great, but it was agnostic to an ecosystem. And what Microsoft was trying to do is kind of embed it in their ecosystem. And like, I don't want to get rid of this version because it looks like what Microsoft can't really compete. Why would it compete with itself, right? That would be kind of
because it wins regardless.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, if you own both teams, you're coming out on top, man.
It's true. A lot of hedge betting into OpenAI.
That makes
Yeah,
sense. I'm curious who's leading the strategy though. That's my big question. Was he leading not this strategy we just talked about, but previous what you were talking about, Jumi? Was it really Sam that was ahead of everything? Like was he the brainchild of everything? Like this whole, and so was he a departure? Like was he the one driving the for-profit kind of model?
So Sam has always been the face, right? So in the public face, speaking to the company as a whole, speaking the vision, and that's supposed to be what the CEO's job is, right? That's what the founder's job is to push forward your mission and your vision. Now, Sam's always been a VC guy, so he knows how to talk to the Microsofts and the Googles and everybody, and that's how he got the billions of dollars going to there, right? But this really seems like a engineer technical side concerns versus no, we need to iterate and put it all out there. And I've seen that theory, out online frequently. And I'm without more information, without more details, that's what I'm naturally drawn towards. This is a conflict between the ask for forgiveness, not permission folks, and the hey, we really got to be careful and strategic about how we're moving forward with this development. So I think that's where the conflict builds out of.
There was also an internal development. Sam gave a comment in an interview referencing a time period that was probably about 2 weeks ago that he had seen the veil of knowledge, I believe was the quote, push forward 4 times in his experience at OpenAI. And the most recent one was 2 weeks before this interview took place. And that kind of aligns with, I believe, the time period of Ilya being like, hey, we need to, like, there's some genie in bottles and the bottle stoppers are like maybe coming out a little bit and we need to have a serious like realignment about timing is what I'm surmising from from the
Yeah, that's very
implications.
interesting, Beth, and I'm curious about that. But I'm also curious: was this a long time coming, or is it as abrupt as it looked like it has been? Like, everybody gets fired on Fridays, so it was a Friday firing, right? So I'm wondering, was this in the works for a while? Was like they were like, this is the last straw, Sam. You weren't listening to us. We're going to fire you. Like, did he know that he was on warning, or was this as what do we call it? Spontaneous as it sounds, big or looks.
Well, I would just say there clearly had to be some deep disagreement and separation, disconnection happening at the board level, and that precipitated this.
Yeah.
So it wasn't all of a sudden.
No, but so
there was something afoot.
Right, and what it seems like, again, sorry, Brian, you want to talk about predictions? What it seems like is that what flipped, right, in that long time schism was Ilya. Ilya's vote then went for removing Sam.
And then now he regrets that, right?
And now he regrets that?
Yeah. Well, he's like, I'm sorry, but then we're gonna move forward.
No, he regrets it. Sam and Greg have both quote tweeted that with 3 hearts each.
Yeah, guys, this is what is this guy supposed to say? What is he supposed to? He's caught between a rock and a hard place, and he whether he masterminded getting 3 other people on the board to go against Sam and oust him and Greg on Friday or not, or he was just one of the people. I don't know where Ilya found it. I don't think anybody really knows. But like, what is he supposed to do? It's crumbling around him. They've got potentially people threatening mass exodus and layoffs. I mean, look, in another day or so, we may see this all go back. It may, maybe you guys are right. I think there's some good predictions about it. What I want to know is, okay, fine, this happens. It doesn't happen. Robert, you kind of alluded to this at the beginning of the show, which is more what I'm curious about from you guys is, okay, how does this change the landscape? We are getting news that is saying that Google is pushing back Gemini. That people were saying that their replacement to Bard, which was going to be a GPT-4 similar killer, whatever it was going to be, we don't know, but it was going to be Google's big push, and that's being pushed back into now, we assume, 2024. Where does this leave Anthropic's? Are there going to be people who move over to Anthropic's for a consumer? Andy, you've talked about this many times. Having open source isn't such a bad thing. There's good things why you might want to use the LangChain version of the custom GPT. And there we go. On Friday, we see internal turmoil at a company where we are all praising the custom GPT things. And if Sam does leave, we may very well see at OpenAI a super slowdown. We may not see nearly the innovations we've seen on the custom GPT or ChatGPT side of things, keeping in mind that it's still 10 days away from the 1-year anniversary of ChatGPT being launched publicly. 1 year. Yeah. So, like, what does that mean for 2024?
You're saying a lot, Brian. Stop.
Amount of innovation.
You have so many things you said that are like you ask questions. I know. I mean, I have so much to say. I'm sure we all like, but you just skipping around. I will say, best quote of the day that you just said, like 5 minutes ago, was, "What is he supposed to say?" It's like, exactly. Of course, he's going to say, "I'm deeply regret my participation." He's got to be save his stinking ship.
Yeah.
Hey, but by the way, I would not worry too much about OpenAI stalling, because they have one of the most advanced AIs available to manage the forward progress of that whole branch of AI. It doesn't necessarily require specific individuals anymore to be able to make progress with that approach.
That's what Ilya found, is that it was programming itself.
But Sam is saying
Ilya is
in the hands of some very competent people who remain at OpenAI. It could continue to be quite innovative. I'm just speculating, but I'm going to say it could continue. It may not require human, marshaling of that process. The people who have stepped in move it forward.
Yeah, you're giving them a lot of credit as to where they are now, and that's human generated. That's a good theory. I'm curious how it plans out. because Brian's theory is basically that, you know, the humans are gonna be like, either they leave or they get less motivated because they're a little bit dissatisfied with the leadership now, and they kind of
Well,
don't.
Yeah.
But then
Sam
you're
said last week-
Ilya is the chief scientist, right? And
Yes.
he's not going anywhere.
He's potion maker.
we
Well,
assume. Yeah, he's on the list of the 500 people who said they may resign. So who
And
knows?
follow
And if he
Sam.
wants the right- I mean, like Mira's the first one. He's the 12th name on there. Like, who knows with that? I think what
he
is this
orchestrated the
is this an opening for some competitors? Are they looking at this and licking their chops and saying the more turmoil, the more disruption there is in AI, the better for us? Whatever tool you want to look at, whether it's a Poe type tool, Pi, whether we want to look at Anthropic and what they're doing, whether we want to look at Microsoft. I mean, Sam said last week that GPT-5 is something they're working on, but it's going to take another 10 billion investment from Microsoft to get there. That was last week, before Friday, before all this. So we know that this stuff is crazy expensive to produce. Who's going to jump in? Who's going to bring the next level of ChatGPT, whether that's at OpenAI or not? And then does that happen in 2024?
Yeah.
On that note,
Brian,
I got
that speaks towards the better narrative. That the conspiracy theory of outside forces manipulating the situation to achieve this result, so that certain market share or bits and pieces could be eaten up by competitors. I think that having a dark, shadowy organization in the background makes for a better story. I would really like to know what the truth is, because there's what we can see on the internet, what people have posted on the internet, and then there's what really happened. Right.
Exactly.
So there's
I did see a good tweet about it. I meant to say earlier, Jimmy, there's a good tweet that said, man, this story makes The Social Network look like a kid's movie.
Right.
To your point about a good movie down there, is somebody is going to crush this in a good movie down the line, you know?
Oh, yeah. And I would love to see it in 24 style, where, you know, if it was a TV series, they break it down by hour, because it happened. The majority of it's happened in 72 hours. You could totally do that, you know?
Yeah.
So I would love to see that, but I'd really like to know the truth. I think prediction wise, I think the turmoil from the public's point of view will slow down for our audience. We have, you know, businesses and professionals and whatnot. That might slow down or make them rethink their entry into the AI space. And I worry about all of the smaller companies trying to start up something, especially since we've already seen that when custom GPTs came out, it crushed a whole bunch of companies that were just wrappers and around, you know, the OpenAI API and things like that. So I want the dust to settle, just so that we can encourage those smaller organizations to try and compete in this space, because it's still a new space and the big guys haven't solved it yet. They're close. They're getting much closer. I think Copilot from Microsoft, and, you know, if Microsoft's acquisition of key personnel from OpenAI is any indicator, they might have the lead on that.
Yeah, I predict that Sam and Greg are not going to leave Microsoft. They're going to work there now. And the value of Microsoft in the accretion of value attributable to AI specifically has just grown in my estimation. So I might buy Microsoft today.
Well, it went up 2% after the announcement. If you read that article, their stock price went up 2% right after the announcement of bringing on Sam.
Right.
Yeah. Like, that alone gets me thinking, it's like, yes, mastermind, cause division.
Well, here's a prediction from Gunnar Hood, who's saying Robert. Oh, I guess this is for somebody else. Robert Scoble has a theory. OpenAI was facing an NVIDIA squeeze that got the fire of Sam Altman coup to gain speed. All right, so wait.
Mm.
Has a theory. OpenAI was facing an NVIDIA squeeze. I don't know what that means. What do you got? I can try to pull up this Twitter, but what does that mean?
NVIDIA makes the chips that power
Right.
the things that do this. Sam
And
has
there's a
recently
shortage,
been
right?
Sam has recently been talking to people about creating an
I did see that.
separate company that will do
Mhm.
that. That will control that.
Mhm, mhm.
Maybe
And
that's
Microsoft
targeted.
did announce that they
Competitive
came out
chips,
with
is
their
what
own
you're saying.
chipset.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Microsoft's 10 billion support of OpenAI, a chunk of that, like maybe 7 billion of that is in compute
Mhm.
credit.
Yeah. And what did Microsoft also announce that they're building? And so did Apple announce they're building it competitors to
It's
NVIDIA?
where the profit is right now. Right.
Yeah.
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 In
Talk about a
in
company
in
that I wish I
the
had invested
pickaxes
in
and the
4 years
shovels.
ago. Who would have thought? I mean, NVIDIA to me was always just the cool video card I had in my computer. You know, like, oh yeah,
The
NVIDIA.
game
They
company.
make the gaming video. Not that I play games, but it was always great for Adobe products because I don't know, Adobe products always crash. So like you had to have a different decent NVIDIA onboard processor just to freaking run, you know, Adobe Photoshop or After Effects, mostly After Effects. So I've always, it's funny, you know, you think of NVIDIA like 4 years ago, I'm like, yeah, they make the video cards, and now they're like the center of the story, and their chips are bigger than the Intel chips that we used to think about and all this other stuff. So there's another prediction for 2024. What is NVIDIA still going to hold the same market share that they do today, or will these other companies be able to catch up and produce as comparable? I know one of them's got like it's not T100, but it's got like a 100.
I think that'll be
whatever.
2025. I think the companies catching up with their own manufacturing, that we'll see in 2025, because I think there's like at least a year develop. So they could be developing it for the year already. And so it's like a 2-year cycle, and some new chipset can come out and things like that.
I don't know this too, but there could be some raw material shortages in that pipeline as well.
That's
that could
true.
also slow
Supply
things
chain.
down. Like, I mean, you know, could NVIDIA even ramp up and double production if they wanted to? I don't even know if that's possible. Okay, so like let's wrap this up because we're already like 6 after, and I figured today would kind of go like that. But any other predictions you guys want to make? And I don't know, maybe we'll revisit this in December, and we'll try to do one more like 2024 prediction once this sort of dust settles. That might be the best move here. But any other predictions you guys want to make, I guess, from today's point of view, sort of looking forward into 2024?
AI continues in 2024.
That's a solid.
I feel confident in it.
My prediction is that Google will release something quite profound in 2024.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think in one day they're going to release something that immediately gets people to go like, whoop, right back over to Google, because I don't think that any of us, not me at least, I'm not beholden to a tool. Like, I love ChatGPT right now. I think they do amazing. I also like Anthropic. The reality for me personally is if Anthropic drops a suitable competitor or Google to a custom GPT tomorrow and it has a better interface, I will flip-flop in a heartbeat if I think that's what's better for my clients and my customers. Right. If I think it gives a better end user experience, if I think it makes my job as a consultant easier to bring these tools to, be it sales or any other part of a company, I will move in a second, and I will simply tell my clients I have their best interest at heart, and this is why we're switching tools or whatever. Wouldn't even think about it twice. So as much as I love custom GPTs and ChatGPTs, all things that came out in the last 2 weeks, wouldn't bother me in a second to flip over to Google or wherever the best tool is at the time, because what I really think in 2024 is we won't see the adoption from companies unless it gets easier on the user adoption to bring these sort of pieces and parts together. And I really feel like with all the conversations and all the companies I talk to on a week-to-week basis, that's where the holdup is like, we don't want to push and invest too hard in any one area because it could very well be out of date tomorrow. And we can't put our time and resources and money into something like that that's moving so quickly. So there's a huge hesitancy right now. I think that's going to ease up a bit in 2024 as some companies start to actually show proof, not just hypotheticals, but proof that AI is directly improving their ROI. And when we start to see some stories and some Q2s and reports come out, and they're like, when we took our team and implemented this AI solution, our ROI went like this, then you're going to have a whole lot of people go, whoa, okay, hold on. What are they doing? What do we need to do? I just don't know that we've seen any of those, 100% proven solutions right now. And I don't blame a lot of companies for being a bit hesitant and saying, this could be a lot of hype. There's a lot of people talking about it. We're going to hold tight and see what happens. So that's my prediction. Anybody else?
All right. So I have one, and I'll go a little more specific. I think by the end of 2024, you will see a truly viable personal AI agent.
By the end of 2024?
By the end of 2024.
Ooh.
I think what will come out of this lack of a term debacle with OpenAI is a lot of scrambling and a lot of more motivation to put forth some sort of tool or idea that will gain a bigger moat for them for whatever organization. I agree with Greg. It's probably Apple's a really good, it would fit really well with the Apple brand for them to come out with something, left field. Exactly. They've got, everyone's got an iPhone. Everyone's got they have a controlled marketplace, right? They have a controlled market share they know exactly what hardware is out there and what can run on it.
And they've been a leader since the advent of Siri, right? Tom Gruber, who was one of the founding team members that developed the technology for Apple, he's still a visionary. He's out there working on things, I'm sure, although he's probably retired at this point.
and Apple's not afraid to buy what they need. Like if they're missing a gap in some part of the process, they'll just buy if it exists already.
Yep.
And they've been a manufacturer for a few years now in terms of chipsets and things like that. So
I just want to tell you, Greg mentioned again, he said exactly plus Apple Silicon. I just want to make sure.
Exactly. So they have the whole vertical there. They just need to pull the trigger on a product that they know is going to work well, and they can control it completely because they have a controlled environment.
So right now we're on M2 chip for Apple Silicon.
And they've announced M3 already.
Yeah, good. So M4 will be completely equipped with hardware coded, AI built into the chip.
The foundational AI could be built in there on the firmware, and then it uses RAG or it uses, some other way to fine tune on chip for you. So you don't, so everything's local, and that, plays into the privacy part and all those kinds of things.
Well, let's just keep going. Let's see how long we can go on this show.
Listen, we have already gone. We're already pushing, I think, the longest show yet out of our show episode 71. I think this might be the longest. So we're going to wrap this up. Gunnar Hood, thank you for your prediction. 2024 will still arrive on January 1. And I think that's a great place to end this conversation. But I also will say, I don't think this is the end of this conversation. So not only will we probably talk more about predictions of 2024 before this year is out, because it's still kind of early, which is kind of crazy to think in mid-November. Whereas we typically see business slow down during the holiday season. I don't think that's going to happen with AI. It's only going to probably speed up. So come on back the rest of this week. Tomorrow, we have a cool conversation going about the future of startups, which will sort of merge into what we're talking about now. Nice. But a guy named Greg Eisenberg, Aaron on our show, mentioned this tweet. Now, the tweet's back from March. But March 18th, and we'll pull it up on the screen tomorrow, but it was his predictions and what does the future of startup look like? And I thought, well, that's a really cool conversation. So that'll be tomorrow. Wednesday, we'll do AI in the news, which I am sure will get you whatever happened 48 hours from now with Sam Altman. Wherever he lands, we might know in 48 hours. On Thursday, on Thanksgiving, we have a cool fireside chat where whoever can make it that day will be having a chat for those that are in the States. You can listen along to it and while you're prepping your turkey and your stuffing and your cranberry. And then Friday, we're back with a show about Canva and Canva's a new AI, not so new, but new AI features. And is that an Adobe killer? Is that, are there some reflexes to that with what Adobe Firefly has done as far as being a free tool and things like that? So that's what we have coming up all this week, guys. Don't forget, if you can't catch us live, then you can always catch us on all sorts of platforms, from Spotify to Apple Podcasts, which is growing and growing. Hey, we just passed 500 listens on our podcast platform. So really excited about that. Huge milestone for us. And then we'll keep growing. Of course, you can see us on YouTube Live, not Facebook, LinkedIn. And then you can also see the replays on both of those. So we're everywhere. We're omnipresent. Just come find us. The Daily AI Show Live. All right, that's it.
And on mission. We're on mission. You don't have to go anywhere else.
45 minutes, so we can stay with less than 45. All right, here we go. We get 9 seconds. Bye, everybody.